There was a meeting last night regarding the proposed closure of the mental health unit in Medway. Now, the trust which runs mental health services right across the county wants to close the unit known as A Block. It's at Medway Maritime. They want to increase inpatient beds at 3 other units: Dartford, Maidstone and Canterbury. But if you live in Medway, you can see the problem here, can't you? And we've heard concerns from patients and their families that the closure will place even more pressure on the lack of beds in Kent. Now, last night, local councillors unanimously voted for these plans to be referred to the Health Secretary. They are that unhappy. They say plans to change the layout of beds where they are is not in the best interests of the people of Medway. Brian joins us now. His daughter has been self-harming. She has been treated as an acute patient a number of times. And Brian, we know that you're already unhappy with the plans. Were you at the meeting last night?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
Describe it to me. What was going on at the meeting? Why does it matter what was happening there?
What you mean at the meeting?
Yeah.
The meeting was actually very quick. I thought there was going to be quite a big debate, but in actual fact, the motion was unanimously agreed within 20 minutes. So there's a lot of feeling in Medway Council about the removal of acute beds from Medway Hospital.
So just remind us of the situation. They were looking at where they wanted the acute beds to be right across the whole county.
KMPT were looking at doing that, yeah.
And they're the people responsible for mental health services in the county.
Yeah.
And they came up with the idea that they would close down a ward, A Block at Medway Maritime Hospital and put the beds elsewhere.
Yeah.
Why does it matter where the beds are? Why does it matter to you and your family and people like you that there are still beds close to where you live?
Mainly because of the inconvenience and the travelling. I mean, if you listen to KMPT, they will tell you that people from Sittingbourne and Sheppey will go to Maidstone, people from Medway will go to Dartford. There's never any vacancies at Maidstone, so the default situation is that people from Sittingbourne and Sheppey will be sent to Dartford. The distance, some months ago, my daughter had a toothache. They couldn't handle it at Dartford. They asked me to take her to a dentist, and I said, "Do you realise that's 120 miles round trip to do that?" And I said, "Can you not give them some antibiotics?" It took them 2 days to get antibiotics. I'm not happy with the isolation of Dartford, and I think you'll find if people from Sheppey will go to Dartford, it's even worse. And to get there on public transport, certainly from Sheppey, is £22 return.
The facilities at Medway Maritime weren't good, though. A Block has been criticised as not really being fit for purpose. Why do you want it to stay open if it's not good? I mean, we've heard about patients having to sleep on mattresses on the floor there.
Yeah, but that's the case everywhere else. My daughter was in Canterbury and she had to sleep in a room, a separate room, with no facilities at all. The bed situation in Kent is dreadful. There are never any beds available. They're sending a lot of people outside the area. They're spending millions of pounds on outside the area. So, and this other thing about Medway being not good, if you actually look at the latest reports, Medway is in fact the best out of the 4 sites for different reasons.
Okay. The trust as well, KMPT, have given the impression that Medway Hospital wanted A Block back urgently.
No, they didn't.
So what's the truth here?
No, they didn't. The truth is, and I'd heard that as well, that they wanted it back. At the meeting, the first thing they said at the meeting was Medway Hospital Trust do not want the beds, don't want the area back. KMPT have got a 60-year lease on the wards. Medway Hospital doesn't want it back. It's all myth. A lot of this is myth. I've heard all sorts of things like it's the oldest place in the building. It's dreadful. It's not. It's only 20 years old.
So are you saying it's that classic example? Somebody wants to close something down, so they run it down verbally first.
Oh, very much so. In fact, several meetings ago, we were told that Medway was withering on the vine by KMPT. I'm not surprised. They announced last year that they were going to close it. People have been leaving to get jobs.
Okay. Brian, how is your daughter?
She's in hospital. She was taken back in hospital last week. She's been in hospitals 5 times in 2 months, and last week she actually had to. She needed a place of safety. They had no beds last Wednesday night. The only thing they could offer was for her to sit in the A&E at Medway, which she did for 6 hours. So it just sort of demonstrates the situation that's around at the moment for people with acute mental illness.
Brian, thank you for talking to us again today. I really appreciate your time. Let me introduce you now to Nick Fairweather. Nick is a clinical negligence lawyer in Canterbury who's actually represented patients treated by the Mental Health Trust for Kent and Medway. Nick Fairweather, good morning. What are your clients telling you?
Well, this is part of a continuing process, Julia, and I think everyone listening needs to understand this. In Kent as a whole, we have lost Ashford inpatient facilities. We've lost the inpatient facilities at Thanet, and now they're rolling this process out effectively into Medway. So whereas we once had 6 inpatient facilities throughout Kent, we're going to be left with 3. And this is all about cuts ultimately. But
you say that, but reconfiguration of NHS services is about more than just cuts. Sometimes it's about saving money. Sometimes it's about putting the best facilities into one place. So if we've still got the same number of beds, is it really a cut or is it just change?
Well, a number of things. Bed numbers are very important, of course. And my understanding of these proposals, having read the independent review that was commissioned both by Medway and Kent County Council, is that they will involve a cut in beds from 180 to 162 across the county. Now, beyond that, at the moment, the acute in-bed facilities are running at 100% and the recommended level is 85%. So Brian's absolutely right. What's happening is because when people need to be admitted to hospital, that's a decision that's being taken by doctors and other mental health professionals. They're not going to assess people to a quota of beds that are available. And so when these decisions are being taken, people at the moment are not just being ferried increasingly throughout Kent from one address to another and taking up valuable time from the police, for example. They're also being taken out of area and taken out of area to private facilities, and the cost to the NHS in paying through the nose for those private facilities is absolutely colossal. So what may seem like a short-term saving is nothing of the sort. And I would say beware health administrators using terms like refiguration and centres of excellence. I mean, another thing that the review highlighted is that they really couldn't see anything very cogent in terms of the claim that these 3 new centres would be centres of excellence. That's one of the things they highlighted within their recommendations.
You're saying that those are words that it's easy to use. Where's the evidence? I understand the point you're making. The fact that you are a clinical negligence lawyer and you're talking to us about this suggests that some people believe they have been negligently treated.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, this is also something, Julie, that's not just happening in Kent. It's happening nationwide. I've just dealt with an inquest down in Southampton where there's been a similar reduction in acute in-bed facilities, where a young girl and her family simply couldn't access an admission to hospital on any basis, a voluntary basis or otherwise. And tragically, she ended up taking her own life. So these are really, really serious issues. And, the worst thing you can do to someone who's in a mental health crisis and to their family is displace them from their local area, displace them from their family, from their friends, from the familiar surroundings. It's just absolutely the worst thing. And of course, there are knock-on effects in terms of travel, but really, for someone who's in a vulnerable situation, to take them out of their familiar surroundings and disorientate them into a facility many, many miles away it's an appalling thing to do. It really is.
A very brief, sorry, I must ask you to be brief on this last point. Jeremy Hunt, the Health Secretary, is being invited to intervene, to look at this himself now. Do you think that will make a difference?
Well, I don't know, Judah. I can only hope so, because this is not a good thing for patients. It's not a good thing for relatives, and I don't think ultimately it's a good thing fiscally, because I think the illusion of savings here will be short-lived, and in the long term, the taxpayer will be paying more for people to be treated outside of area.
Nick, thank you so much for your time this morning. Nick Fairweather is a clinical negligence lawyer. You also heard from Brian Clark, whose daughter has serious mental health problems and has been in and out of hospital over the last few months, very unhappy happy about the plans to close the acute unit at the Medway Maritime. We will follow this story. We know that mental health matters just as much as our physical health here in Kent.